Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQ Film Festival. Our 30th annual film festival starts next week, and we have an amazing lineup. I am so overjoyed at our opening night film. I was born this way. I heard about it when it was playing earlier this year at film festivals. I actually saw it at Frameline and just loved the film so much. And I'm so happy that we're able to screen this as our opening night film. We're going to talk soon to one of the producers, Wellington Love. We're also going to talk to Beatitude Bishop Jones, who worked with Carl at Unity Fellowship Church and Minority AIDS Project. But first of all, let me read a brief description, and then we're going to jump into some questions. When Archbishop Carl Bean sang the 1977 disco hit and gay anthem, I Was Born This Way, it was just the start of his mission to create positive change in the world. He went on to found the Minority AIDS Project and the world's first LGBTQ church for people of color, using innovative rotoscope animation and featuring appearances by Lady Gaga, Questlove, Billy Porter, and Dionne Warwick. The exceptional, empowering documentary I Was Born This Way explores the life and legacy of Bean and his resounding message, love is for everyone. Again, I am so excited to be showing this film. Atlanta's going to love it, especially as our opening night film. Wellington Love is our producer, Beatitude Bishop Jones. Thank you so much for being here. Beatitude will actually be at the screening for opening night. Thank you both for getting this film out there to the world and for taking time to talk to us today.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us. Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
Absolutely. Well, just let's just start a little bit at Wellington about the decision to make this and get Carl's story out there.
Well, yeah. So first of all, so seriously, thank you so much for inviting the film for opening night, and we couldn't be more honored to open out on film, and just yeah, and we just obviously we think Atlanta is an amazing place to show the film, and hopefully people will embrace it and respond to it in the way that we intended. So yeah, so I came onto the project about a little well 4.5 years ago. It originated with Daniel Youngie, who then brought on Sam Pollard, and he found the story while researching for another project. Obviously, I think you've experienced the film and you have a chance to see what a magnetic, powerful, charismatic figure Carl Bean was. And one of our intentions with this film is to bring his story, some of which some people know, a lot of which I don't think people know the sort of the full breadth of all the things he did from his AIDS activism and AIDS work, his ministry, and then obviously combined with not only I Was Born This Way, but his broader musical legacy. So it's a story that had to be told. It really had to be told. And I think it's particularly resonant now, in this, age of erasure, frankly, and this is something that's come up a lot as we've screened the film, but as we see all the dismantling, all the disruption, all the disinformation, it's important to keep putting it back, to keep building it back. And we were lucky to be able to have the Archbishop as our sort of not only as our hero interview, but our hero that drives the story, because no one could tell it better, And so what I hope people will gather once they see it is, I didn't get a chance to know him personally. I came onto the project just a few months before he passed away, sadly. So, I'm left with, this sense of, at once gratitude, but also awe at everything that he did in his life.
Gratitude. I was at the Frameline screening. What an amazing event. What an amazing talk back. But what's it like getting out there and sharing Carl's story, both for people who know a lot about Carl Bean, as well as those people who aren't as familiar with Carl's story as they should be?
My goodness, my sentiments are as with Wellington, thank you for holding the space for us today to share that. What was it like? It was like many things, Archbishop was a dynamic person to know. He was a man with a huge sense of humor. So to be in his presence, no matter how uh, uh, heavy the load of servitude was, or his compassion and giving, there was always laughter. There was always, we were both colleagues and friends. So we laughed a lot. We laughed through some of the most difficult periods of our lives as we were burying people each week who were dying long before there was medication or even education on the disease. The people were just showing up very, very ill, and we were misinformed, or we lacked the understanding that it was as universal as it was, and that it was not just a white gay man's disease, which got out there for a long time. And so people were not taking the precautions that was necessary to stay safe. And so the dying of our community members was rapid as people were continuing the old way of sexual encounters. So we were confronted with the results of that before it finally got out that this disease was as universal as it was. Um, he had a great impact on my life and my ministry. Being with him was energizing. It was, we built camaraderie and we were able to um, put our hands to the plow, so to speak, and do what was necessary to bring compassion and love to people who were very confused and in many ways were coming out as they were sick. And once the stigma of the disease was at an all-time high. And it was the love that Archbishop displayed during those very difficult times without a script, without a map or anything that we had ever seen. So what was it like? It was like many, many things. It was emotional. It was quick. It was challenging both to our psyche, our spirituality, and everything that we knew. So that's just sort of laying the environment that we worked in early on. And then, of course, uh, more information came up. So it was an indescribable um, experience now that we look back on it and kind of brush our brow and say, how on earth did we get through that? What was the force that carried us and allowed us to stay plugged in and allow the Archbishop to show the kind of love and embrace and acceptance in the face of not many who were, there for him to support.
This documentary does such a amazing and comprehensive job of talking about Carl and showing his life and his legacy. But something that I was really kind of struck by is that you know Carl did not have an ideal childhood. He had some serious challenges growing up. Can you sort of talk a little bit about that, Wellington?
Yeah, I mean, as people will see from the film, he was, I don't want to give too much away, but um, he was adopted by his godparents as a toddler because, his parents who were teenagers were just not equipped to raise a kid. And Carl talks about the gratitude and the love that he experienced with his adopted family until, of course, they discovered that he was that he was gay. And so that led to everything from him being sort of forced out, returning to live with his biological mother. But within that, there was even with the trauma and with some of the other sort of, horrible things that happen, again, which you'll see in the film, he was a survivor. One of the ways in which he survived was through song and through music and with his voice, which from an early age was undeniable. It's funny to think about the song "I Was Born This Way" because, Carl was the embodiment of that feeling, that expression, long before we it was a concept, and even as a child, he was unapologetic about it. He was open about it. It cost him, it cost him a lot. It caused a lot of pain, I think, for him, but ultimately it was also part of his salvation, that in the context of all the sort of trauma, he was able to rise up out of that. And I marvel at it, frankly, to think like, wow, and I never got the, again, I didn't get to know him, but just to even to hear him recount the story, and he recounts so much of it. Even when he's talking about it, there's always this like little sparkle in his eye, or the smile, and I just think, wow, how did you do it? My complaints are nothing by comparison. So anyway, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's my sense of it.
Carl's work as an artist, a singer, as an activist, in all of his roles, had such a huge impact and laid the groundwork and really impacted today's generation. Can both of you sort of talk about the fact that, what he did in his day is still relevant now and impacting, people like Questlove and Lady Gaga, and Billy Porter and all sorts of activists across the country?
Well, one of the things I would say for sure is that he had vision.
Yeah.
And he had vision of a world of acceptance.
Yeah.
And that acceptance began with the idea that you were okay as you were. Here we're talking, we're entering a new era where the whole LGBTQIA liberation is almost getting a resurge, and it's people are finding themselves through an unfortunate background of disease and are feeling shame and are feeling guilty, and parents are showing up and family members are showing up, looking for a way out of this punishment called AIDS, that because of who I am. So the Archbishop had vision, a worldly vision, a global vision, that self-acceptance was indeed the key, and that this disease, as there had been others, was not a punishment from God. It was not something that you caused by being who you were. It was an option that you were born, that a choice of freakiness, so to speak. So I want to be freaky, I'm choosing to be freaky. So therefore, no. It meant more than that. And that his vision of a world of acceptance that resonates today, that continues to, Wellington refers to not knowing him, but we get a chance to know him on a much broader scale in terms of the vision that he had for us today, and owning that space of, you're born just as you are. And it is not something that, you're choosing. Who would want to choose a life, where, family members would be, not in agreement with the way you live, or, all of that. We all know the challenges of what being a member of the LGBTQA community what goes with that. And so Carl's message was very much, let's start from a very organic and natural place. That would be my response.
If I'm correct, Wellington, I think this film premiered at Tribeca this year,
Yes, correct.
and you've done select festivals across the country. Again, we're so honored to be one of the festivals showing this. But talk to me a little bit about the future in this film and where people will eventually be able to see this down the line.
Well, yes, I mean we've been really kind of blown away by the response that we've had with the film screening at Tribeca, Frameline. We had a screening in UK. We had a screening in DC, and obviously we were now screening it out on film, and actually in a couple of weeks we'll be sorry, next month will be at AFI, and actually Beatitude is in Nashville now for a screening. So anyway, so yes, we've had a few select screenings, and right now we're going to complete the sort of our short fall circuit of screenings. We'll do a small theatrical release in Los Angeles. And all while we're doing this, we are actively pursuing distribution for the film. So we do hope at some point soon, in the coming months, perhaps beginning of the year, we will actually have a distribution platform or studio involved where we can then make it available much more broadly nationally. And then obviously one of the key components of that will be, making sure the film, really gets to the communities that are represented, in the film, and all aspects of that, because, while, Carl did this sort of, I mean, he crossed so many different arenas, from, as we've talked about, from the music, the AIDS activism, his spiritual work. He touched everybody from, Lady Gaga to Billy Porter. But then, but he's in the weeds, he's on the ground, he is, actually literally putting his hands on people,
Mhm.
and I think that is, I think that's an amazing story in itself, that considering where Unity started, and Beatitude can speak to this, obviously much better, just basically in a converted space of sorts, right? He went from that to, touching hearts around the world through his music. So, um, yeah, so that's we want that to be a part of how the film is seen, both on the local level as well as, more broadly.
Congratulations to you both, and thank you for this film and for taking the time to talk to us. I Was Born This Way opens out on film um, September 25th at 7 p.m. at the Midtown Arts Cinema. We're so happy that Beatitude Bishop Jones will be there. The film is sponsored by GLAAD. There'll be a talk back afterwards by GLAAD's Jillian Walker. So I'm so very, very excited about this event next week. I cannot wait. Thank you again for taking the time and for sharing this.
You're more than
Pleasure
welcome.
talking with both of you
Thank you, Jim.
so
Thank
much.